joined again by Dave Owen. Good to have you back here, Dave. What have you seen from that second quarter? An improved performance from Mystics, not quite where they need to be, but improved on the first quarter.
Yeah, I think, Coach Rowley's obviously had a word after the first quarter, got them mentally back on track. They've not let it got them down. They've still got the composure. They're still just trying everything. They just can't make the shots at the moment. And I think a lot of that must, you look at the success Manchester have had this season. They can clearly make shots, right? They wouldn't be here if they couldn't.
Exactly.
So you've got to look at Kohler scouting. So all those shots now coming outside of their comfort zones, are they taking away from the players the shots, the areas of the shots that they want to take them? It seems to me Kohler's done an outstanding job, and they're just making them uncomfortable and trying to take them out of the things that they want to do. And
they've done a really good job of closing them down on fast break points, because we know that the Mystics are a team that like to play fast, like to get out into transition. And Kohler, I feel like we see this every time we see them play, because they're so defensively minded. They do a really good job with the scout, and they're able to close teams down like that.
Yeah, and for me, Kohler, it's just the composure of the team. Watch them over that first half. You take any snapshot of the game right at the start when they don't know what's going to happen. At the end when they know they've got a big lead, and in between where things maybe go against them at times, there's just no change in any of those players' demeanour. The emotional maturity and the culture and the energy of that team is just so steady and so consistent. And it feels like whether they're up 20, down 20, you'd never know.
And it's so consistent throughout the years, isn't it, as well? They had quite a bit of turnover in the last few years, and across the WABL, the Under-18s, Division 1, they've still managed to be just winning this season.
Yeah, and obviously winning's a habit. They won here last weekend in the Division 1 Women's Final. So, you think about winning as a team when things are going against you, or you're in a big final, big arena. You're looking at those players around you, your teammates, thinking, well, last time we were in this situation, she came through for us. She came through for us. And you're looking and you're trusting each other. So even when the game's going against you, you're looking at who's on your left, who's on your right, saying, I think we've got this because we've been here before, and we always make it happen as a team together. And it's that trust of the teammates, and that's why winning becomes such a habit for teams.
Absolutely, and we saw them last weekend. They were down against Ipswich in Division 1. They came back and just had an outrageous performance, didn't they? Came up with a huge win in the end. And me and Adam have spoken a little bit about Felicia Jacobs, obviously one of the most talented young players we've got in the country. Heading over to Philadelphia for university in September. Just talk to me a little bit about Felicia Jacobs' play.
Yeah, it's one of those you saw very, very early on when she first came into the GB under-16s, and you start to think, okay, obviously you see the size straight away that okay, we've got a prospect here. But she's just grown and grown year on year. And obviously Kohler's such an outstanding program for developing players and making the most of them. And again, if I'm a US recruiter, a high character player is always such a big factor in your recruitment, particularly when you're recruiting for internationals, because you never quite know someone moving to a different country, away from their support network. You never quite know how it's going to go. So when you see the way these Kohler girls carry themselves and their demeanour on the court, and the culture that Jackson Gibbons instills, that gives you confidence as a recruiter to know that, okay, I know what they can do with a basketball, but I know what they're going to be for me in terms of the adjustment to moving over here, the impact they're going to have on the culture of this environment. And I think that's a massive selling point for these Kohler players. Absolutely.
And Coach Jackson Gibbons and Brian Guru have talked a long time about the culture and composure of players. It's not just about basketball, it's about life and coaching for life.
100%.
So for the Manchester Mystics, obviously work to do here in the second half, but who on this team is going to look like they can step into a leadership role here and kind of take over a little bit in the third quarter?
Yeah, I was looking at the WABL stats, seeing, okay, who can make some threes on this team? Because you've got to hit threes in the second half. You've got to close that gap, and that's the obvious route to do it. So you've got the two Costas and Escriva Gay. So those are the three that kind of jumped out to me in the WABL stats that can maybe give us some help from the three-point line. They both took about all three took about 4 to 5 shots a game. 20-30% or somewhere in the middle around there. So that's kind of the obvious route. You just got to start jacking some shots. But obviously, if they're not falling, that can get really, really bad, really quick if their rebounds are going out and then the fast breaks are going. So I think the big thing for them is mentally, isn't it? They've got to come into the second half almost having their heads that it's 0-0, 0-0, and just try and find a different. Maybe the coaches need to reframe what success looks like in the second half and give them some kind of short-term targets. Okay, for the next 2 minutes, we have to score more than them. You know, just make it really simple. Maybe give some individual players targets, what you want from them individually. Focus a player on rebounds, maybe offensive rebounds, give them some second chance opportunities, and get some things in their head they can really focus in on that kind of micro level, instead of looking up at the scoreboard every time and thinking, oh, that's just too much.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You've just got to break it into chunks, haven't you, into something manageable. Kohler currently winning the battle of the boards, 40 rebounds to 22 to Manchester. Manchester with 13 offensive rebounds, but Kohler with 13 offensive rebounds. So that's a positive that the Mystics can look at. You know, they might not be getting the points, but they're getting the chances to get the points. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, you've seen the effort that the Mystics players are putting in. You know, when you see them competing on the rebounds, like, it'd be very easy to drop your heads, drop your effort level in a game like this. But that's the area you can see. You know, the numbers prove it, that, you know, they are really working and pressuring and trying to get those rebounds and hustling. They've just got to, like you say, the offensive rebounds could be a big one for them and get some second chance opportunities. They've probably got to do a little more to prevent Kohler getting the offensive rebounds. You know, they've got to be one and done for the rest of the game now, really. You can't afford to give them second chance points. And then fast breaks is probably the other one as well. It's almost every time Manchester maybe rushed or forced a shot slightly, bang, Kohler were right down and got an easy layup. And, you know, that's such a double kind of negative in terms of, oh, I've just missed a shot and now I've just conceded an easy basket at the other end. It's very easy for that momentum to start to go against you, and they've got to turn that energy around. Yeah, there's time. They don't need to rush shots, do they? There's still time. You've still got 24 seconds to take a shot. You can work the ball around, which when we see them move the ball around well, they get good looks. And a player like Sarah Blake-Smith, one of the taller players on the Mystics, is 6 foot. She was the WEABL most improved player in the North this season. Obviously, it's tough to come against 4 bigs inside like you're having Kohler, but she's done a good job so far and able to find some space. Yeah, absolutely. You know, Manchester have got the players. I think it's just they've got to have that trust almost in each other now. You know, we've maybe seen players trying to take it on their own shoulders a little bit and try and force it. You know, they've got to stick to their principles as a club, stick to their system, and trust each other. You know, it's easy to trust each other when you're up. It's a little harder sometimes. People kind of make rash decisions when you're down. So they've just got to stick to what they know, stick to what got them here. You know, they obviously have a system that works, so they wouldn't be in the final, right? Yeah. So they've got to stick with the confidence in it. Not lose the faith, and stick with each other, stick together as a team, and stick to their principles. And me and Adam were just speaking a little bit before. Irina Bowidow, she's playing at the under-18 level, also playing for the under-16s. This is her 4th game of the weekend, and we see it throughout a lot of these competitions. There's a lot of players either playing, you know, under-14s, under-16s, or under-18s, under-16s. They just play so much basketball, and they're sometimes playing different roles on different teams. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, just even if they're not playing different age groups, just that back-to-back format of the junior Final Fours, you never know how that first game's going to go. If that's a real, you know, not necessarily physical energy drain, but emotionally energy draining, that can be the big one. Because physically, you know, we have all the sports science and we know how to recover, but sometimes if the game is very emotionally draining, it's a lot, you know, especially at this age group, you know, it's very, very hard for them to recover from that and, you know, perform to the area they'd like to in the second game. Yeah, definitely. And there's, you know, probably exam season as well for some of them, isn't it? Absolutely, yeah. A lot going on in these kids' life other than basketball. You know, they're not full-time pros. This is all they have to focus on, right? Definitely. Right, great to have you with us, Dave. Thank you. We'll be back to you in the third.